On a quiet afternoon, a small roadside diner buzzes with chatter, laughter, and the smell of frying bacon. At a corner booth sits Lily, a young girl in a wheelchair, quietly stirring her milkshake. She keeps her head down, hoping no one notices her, but a group of teenagers across the room already has. Their mocking whispers turn into cruel laughter, making her shrink even smaller in her seat. No one steps in, until the diner door swings open. The bell above the diner door jingled as it swung open, but this time it wasn't a family or a couple stepping inside. Heavy boots stomped against the linoleum floor, chains clinked softly, and leather jackets patched with emblems caught the afternoon light streaming through the windows. A group of 6 bikers walked in, their presence immediately shifting the air inside the small roadside diner. The steady murmur of conversation faltered. Forks paused mid-air. Even the waitress behind the counter hesitated, her coffee pot hovering above a half-filled mug. To the regulars, these men looked like trouble, the kind of trouble that rolled in on roaring engines and left a trail of unease behind. But at a corner booth, Lily, a 12-year-old girl with bright eyes and a wheelchair parked neatly beside her, noticed them for an entirely different reason. She had been trying to shrink into the shadows, her milkshake half melted as a group of teenage boys across the room snickered at her. Their whispered taunts weren't loud enough for the adults to clearly hear, but Lily felt every sting. She kept her gaze fixed on the table, her small hands twisting nervously in her lap. The bikers scanned the room with cool, assessing eyes. Their leader, a tall man with a weathered face and tattoos peeking out from under his sleeves, paused just inside the doorway. He wasn't looking for food, he was looking at people. His gaze lingered on the boys laughing too loudly in their booth, then shifted to the small figure they were mocking. The diner seemed to hold its breath. Most customers quickly turned back to their plates, whispering under their breath. After all, who would step into a mess involving a pack of bikers? The leader gave a subtle nod to his crew, and they moved toward the back of the diner. The sound of chairs scraping against the floor echoed louder than usual as they sat down. But not before one of them glanced back at Lily, a look not of intimidation, but of recognition. Lily's heart raced. She wasn't sure why, but for the first time since the cruel laughter had started, she felt like she wasn't completely invisible. The stage was set. The diner thought trouble had just walked in. But no one could have guessed what kind of trouble it would be, the kind that silences bullies, lifts spirits, and leaves behind a story no one would ever forget. Lily tried to focus on the straw of her milkshake, swirling the melted ice cream at the bottom of the glass. The laughter from the booth across the diner was hard to ignore. Every giggle, every poorly disguised snicker seemed to bounce off the tiled walls and land right on her shoulders. "Look, she can't even reach the salt," one boy whispered just loud enough for his friends to hear, nudging his buddy and pointing at Lily's table. They all snorted, covering their mouths like the cruel jokes were secrets worth keeping. Another chimed in, "Bet she needs wheels just to keep up with her own lunch." The word stung, more than the sharp edge of any insult. Lily's cheeks flushed hot, but she refused to look up. She had trained herself to keep her head down, to pretend the words couldn't find her. Still, her small hands clenched tightly on the armrest of her wheelchair. The waitress noticed, her brow furrowed in quiet disapproval, but she was too busy juggling orders to intervene. The other diners glanced over, uncomfortable, but no one said a word. Silence hung heavy, the kind of silence that makes cruelty louder. Then, the laughter abruptly softened. The boys shifted in their seats, their smirks faltering. Something, or rather, someone, had stolen their audience. The bikers hadn't ordered yet. Instead, a couple of them leaned casually back in their chairs, arms crossed, their eyes locked on the scene unfolding. Their leader, the tall man with the weathered face, was no longer pretending to look at the menu. He watched the boys with a steady, unblinking stare, his jaw tight, his patience thin. The air shifted again, and this time it wasn't fear directed at Lily. It was the unease of teenagers realizing they were being watched, and not by teachers or parents, but by men who radiated authority in a way that didn't need badges. Lily noticed it too. For the first time that afternoon, she dared to lift her gaze. Across the diner, she met the leader's eyes. There was no pity in them, no mockery. Only something she hadn't felt in a long time, protection. Her chest loosened just a little. She wasn't sure what these strangers would do, but she knew one thing, she wasn't completely alone anymore. The boys' laughter stumbled into nervous chuckles as the bikers stood up. The scrape of chairs against the diner's floor echoed louder than the teasing ever had. Conversations around the room hushed, forks paused midair, and eyes turned to watch. The leader, a tall man with broad shoulders and a beard streaked with gray, walked slowly toward Lily's table. Each heavy step of his boots sent a silent message, this wasn't just a stroll, it was a deliberate choice. His biker brothers followed a few paces behind, not threatening, but united. Lily froze. Her milkshake straw slipped from her fingers, and for a moment, she thought maybe she'd made things worse. Maybe the bullies had drawn dangerous attention to her. But then the man crouched down beside her wheelchair, his rough exterior softening as he met her frightened eyes. "Hey, sweetheart," he said gently, his gravelly voice calm. "Mind if we sit with you?" Lily blinked in surprise, then gave the smallest nod. The leader smiled, and with a wave of his hand, two bikers slid into the booth across from her while another pulled a chair close. The table that once felt like an island now became a fortress. The bullies shifted uncomfortably, their confidence evaporating. One tried to mutter, "We were just kidding around." But the leader didn't even glance at them. Instead, he leaned back and said loud enough for the diner to hear. "You know what? People who have the guts to keep smiling, even when life makes things hard, that's real strength. Stronger than anyone who hides behind laughter." The words cut sharper than any reprimand. The boys lowered their heads, their smirks gone, replaced with the red glow of shame. The waitress, standing at the counter, crossed her arms and nodded in agreement. Lily's wide eyes shimmered with something she hadn't felt all day, respect. These men, strangers who could have ignored her, had chosen instead to lift her up. She wasn't the target anymore. She was the center of something fierce and protective. For the first time in a long while, Lily didn't feel small. She felt seen. The diner, once filled with the awkward tension of cruelty, began to change. Conversations restarted in hushed tones, but the focus never strayed far from Lily's table. The bikers had taken what was meant to be a moment of ridicule and turned it into something else, something powerful. One of the bikers, a burly man with tattoos spiraling down his arms, signaled to the jukebox in the corner. A few coins clinked in, and suddenly, the soft hum of a classic rock song filled the air. It wasn't loud or jarring, it was warm, steady, almost like a heartbeat bringing life back into the room. "Ever danced in a diner before?" the leader asked Lily with a playful grin. She shook her head, startled by the question. "Well, there's a first time for everything." With gentle care, he offered his hand. Lily hesitated, looking down at her wheelchair. I can't," she whispered. "Yes, you can," he replied firmly, not in a way that pressured her, but in a way that told her he believed it. Dancing doesn't always mean standing. It means feeling the music, letting it move you. "May I?" Slowly, Lily's lips curved into a shy smile. She nodded. The leader moved beside her, matching the rhythm of the song with exaggerated, silly moves. Shoulder shimmies, playful head bobs, even a dramatic spin that made his leather jacket flare. The other bikers joined in, clapping and swaying, turning the booth into a stage. And then something miraculous happened, Lily began to move, too. Her small hands tapped against the armrests, her shoulders rocking ever so slightly with the beat. She giggled, a sound so pure and free that it drew smiles from every corner of the diner. A cheer rose up. The waitress clapped along, a cook peeked out from the kitchen with a grin, and even a family sitting nearby joined the rhythm by tapping their spoons on the table. What had started as mockery had blossomed into celebration. The bullies, still lingering by the door, watched silently. Their smirks had vanished, replaced with a heavy realization. They had tried to break a spirit, but instead, they had sparked a moment that lifted an entire room. And in the center of it all was Lily. No longer the girl who had been laughed at, but the girl who had everyone dancing with her. As the last notes from the jukebox faded, the diner erupted into applause. Lily sat in her wheelchair, cheeks flushed with joy, her laughter still bubbling in the air like music that hadn't quite ended. The bikers bowed dramatically, one even pretending to tip an invisible hat, sending another wave of giggles through the crowd. The leader crouched beside Lily, his voice softer now. "You know what you did tonight, kiddo? You showed everybody here what real strength looks like." Her eyes widened, uncertain. "But I didn't do anything." "Yes, you did," he said firmly. "You laughed when others tried to make you cry. You lifted this whole place up. That's something even grown men like us look up to." Lily's mom, tears glistening in her eyes, reached over to squeeze the biker's hand. "You don't know what this means to her," she whispered. "To both of us. People usually. They don't treat her like this." Her voice broke, but her gratitude was clear. The burly man shook his head. "Tonight, everyone saw her for who she is. Don't let anyone take that away." As the waitress refilled cups and the clatter of silverware slowly resumed, the mood in the diner was forever changed. Where there had once been whispers and mocking laughter, there was now respect, and even admiration. People who had been strangers just an hour ago felt connected, united by the reminder of what kindness could do. The bullies had long since slipped out the door, their absence almost unnoticed. In their place, the space they had filled with cruelty was now overflowing with compassion. Before leaving, the bikers formed a circle around Lily's table, each one resting a hand gently on her shoulder, her wheelchair, or her tiny hand. The leader spoke for them all. "Whenever you feel small, remember this: tonight, you had a whole army behind you." Lily's smile was radiant, brighter than the neon lights flickering in the diner's windows. When the bikers finally mounted their roaring motorcycles and drove into the night, the sound wasn't intimidating, it was triumphant, like a victory parade. Lily watched them go, her mother's arm wrapped around her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel different. She felt special. She felt powerful. And everyone in that diner carried the same thought as they left: sometimes, the toughest-looking people carry the gentlest hearts. And sometimes, the smallest act of courage, like a little girl laughing through cruelty, can change an entire room.